We're looking at rounding to a specified number of decimal places today. It's actually really similar in method as to how you would round to the nearest whole number, nearest 10, nearest 1,000, etc. So we're just going to get straight into it. So first off, we'll look at this example that is in your notes, 4.2615937. And yeah, we're just going to have a go at rounding it to 1 decimal place, 2 decimal places, 3 decimal places, 4 decimal places. So first off, we are rounding it to 1 decimal place. So I'll write it down here. Okay, now I didn't write out all of these, but this is tens of thousands, this is hundreds of thousandths, this is millionths, this is tens of millionths, okay? But we don't really need to worry about that. So just like what we did when we're rounding to the nearest whole number, nearest tens, etc., we are going to highlight the place value column that we're interested in. I first off want to round this to 1 decimal place. So 1 decimal place is this column here. It's the first decimal column. It's the tenths column. So that's the column that I want to round to. So then we look at the number in the place value to the right of that. So I'm looking at the hundredths column. And if this number is a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, it does not affect this number. If this number is a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, this number rounds up. So rounding it to 1 decimal place will be 4.3. Now, the reason why I don't need to put zeros here is because 4.30000 is the same as 4.3. So I don't need to bother with this, okay? The reason why, for example, if we were rounding 260 to, let's say, the nearest 10, okay, we're rounding 260 to the nearest 10 is 260. Let's say we're rounding 260 to the nearest 100. You would obviously highlight your hundreds column and then you would say to yourself, okay, well, go to the right. Is this number 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9? It's a 6, so we go up. The reason why we need to put in zeros here and not just the 3 is because we're rounding 260 to 300. Okay, we're not rounding 260 to 3. 3 is very different than 300. So we need to put in our zeros there. But we don't need to put our zeros in here because 4.30 is the same as 4.3. So that's this number rounded to 1 decimal place. Okay, so I'll kind of put this over. Actually, you know what, I'll just leave it there. So that's 4.3 and that is to 1 decimal place. Okay, now let's look at this number and we are going to round it to 2 decimal places this time. So 2 decimal places, let's highlight the place value column that I'm interested in. The second decimal place is in this column, it's the hundredths column. So now that I've highlighted that, I'm looking at the number in the place value to the right. If this number is a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, it does not affect this number. So rounding it to 2 decimal places is 4.26. And that's to 2 decimal places. Okay, and if you ever see DP, it just means decimal place. Right, now let's have a look at rounding it to 3 decimal places. So the third decimal place is just the third decimal column. So that is the thousandths column. So I've highlighted my important column. Now I'm looking at the one to the right of that. If this number is a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, this number rounds up. So to 3 decimal places, I have 4.262. Right, we'll just do one last one, rounding to 4 decimal places. You're very unlikely to be asked to round 4 decimal places, but you know, the method is the same. So the 4th decimal place is the 4th decimal column, which is this, which is tens of thousandths. Okay, I didn't write it there, but that's what it stands for. So then we're looking at the column to the right of this, which is 9. If this number is a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, this rounds up. So I now have 4.2616, and that's to 4 decimal places. Okay. Right, now let's have a little look at some of the worked examples that we have. So we're rounding 5.639 to 1 decimal place. So 1 decimal place, we're looking at our first decimal column, which is this one. We're then looking at the 100ths column, because that is 1 place value to the right. If this number is 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, then it does not affect this. So 5.639 to 1 decimal place is just 5.6. Next one that we're looking at is 25.72057 to 3 decimal places. So 25.72057, and that's to 2 decimal places. So 2 decimal places, we're looking at the 2nd decimal column, which is our hundredths. Then we're looking to the number to the right of that, which is a 0 in this case. So if it's 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, it does not affect this. So to 2 decimal places, we have 25.72. Now, in certain questions, you will be asked to round to a certain number of decimal places. You are unlikely to be asked it as a question in itself, but you might be asked the area of a shape, for example, and the answer might be a decimal with a few decimal places to it, and you might be asked to round to 1 decimal place, for example. As for when you're working with money, money always needs to be round to 2 decimal places, okay? Because if you're in a shop, you'll never see something that's for £25 0.72057. It'll always be rounded to 2 decimal places, because pence is 1/100th of a pound, so we just go to 2 decimal places there, because obviously the 2 is in 100th. Okay, so you do need to get really used to rounding to 2 decimal places especially.